Have you noticed they follow you everywhere? What am I talking about? Percentages in exams, work projects, and even when we're shopping. We're going to start doing the stage 1 now to get you more confident in percentages. So we're going to understand what percentage means, how to calculate it, and also how to use it when we're shopping, we're at work, and in exams. You will confidently go through all the stages to make sure that we know how to do those discounts, know when we're talking about increases and decreases, and know how to do exam questions as well. But we need to know it every day. We go into work and we need to know what everyone else is talking about and how to calculate them pretty quick, don't we? All right, let's take a real life example. You're in a shop, you're in the market store, and it automatically says 40% off. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? You want to buy it, but what does that mean? 40% off. Look at that. She's looking there and going, I don't really know what that means. Let's break it down. We know that we have to work out this awful calculation, don't we? Quick as a lark, and we have to make this decision. So we're going to go through that now, all right? Because that's our problem of the day. Okay, so percentage. For lots of you out there, there is many of us that don't understand what it means. So percent just means it's all out of 100. And luckily, we can actually think, okay, 50% is half of 100, so that's why we represent it as 50%. 25 is 25 out of 100, so that's 25%. And 10% is obviously, you've got it, 10 out of 100. So it's the same goes as low as we can possibly go there, which is 1%, which is obviously where we don't normally see 1% off, but you may see that in a contract when you come down to work. Alrighty, so percentage is just another way of saying it's 1 out of 100, and we're splitting it into 100 parts. Okay, many of us now can go to AI, which I love, by the way. Obviously, you know I'm using AI by just looking at this image, but we want to know how to do it for ourselves, because obviously this is the fact of the matter. 20% of us adults struggle with percentages. That's 11.30 million people in the UK, broken down to 55.65 million adults that struggle. That is the 20% of the 11.13. We struggle with percentages. So let's take away that figure and make sure that we become stronger. You can do that. I can do that. We can make sure that we encourage ourselves to know what percentages are. And that's what I'm going to be taking you through. So what are you? Going to be part of that 20% or are you not? Your decision. But we are a growing number struggling in silence. Are we happy to try? Let's do that. We know that we can change those figures that you've just seen that has absolutely come from World Population Review, and we can make a difference to our own lives and not be waiting on AI to explain it to us. We can work that out pretty quickly, and we can decide if we want that garment or not, and we can decide if the work figures are doing great or not. All right, so yes, you're going to have to learn another language. I know you already know 6 languages, but maths is just as important. So it's going to be a race because literally there is numbers going on wherever we are. So are you going to join me? Say yes to yourself today. We do not want it to be a marathon, but we have to. And everybody knows that if we're going to go in for a marathon, we have to do the training. So we are going to learn this math language and we are going to know how to use it. So let's go back down to the problem. We want to know what 40% off actually means. Well, the garment is £56 and I'm going to take off 40%. Okay, that's great. But what if we change our mindset? You know, if you are going to take off 40%, that you know that you've got 60% left to pay, because 60 plus 40 is 100. Remember that 100 parts. So you can do a different way. You can either make it into a decimal place, just like we do every day. We use our calculators or our mobile phones, and 40% represents 0.4 on our calculators. But the 60 that is left is 0.6 on our calculators with our decimal places. We can change our brain today and realise that we need to know the final figure. I don't need to know what 40% equals at this stage. I can actually find out what that 60% actually means. So we're going to do those decimal places if we're going to do it on our calculator. And we're going to look at what are the common discounts that we tend to give. When we're in work and we're doing contracts, we tend to give between 5 and 10% off in discount. We sometimes, when we're out shopping, we see 25% off in discount. So that 25 is actually easy to go into 100 parts. 100 divided by 25 is 4 parts. Remember, for the UK, £1 is 100 pennies. So that makes it a little bit easier. So a jacket, we can either do it by going into the 4 parts and take it off from there, or we can do it by our decimal places if we want to have a look at the actual calculator mobile phone. But I've got a different way for doing it. What if we're taking 25% off? I actually find out what the 75% is, because 75 and 25 is 100. What if I want to find out how much I'm going to be paying? And that simply works by calculating this sum. £56 is the original price, and I'm also going to be finding out what I'm going to be paying that's left, which is 75%. So that bit represents, as you can see on the table there, 0.75. If I times that together, I'm actually going to be paying £42 instead of £56. Take a picture now so you can use it later. This will help you. Alrighty, so let's go back through the sums again. Our problem. We know that we can find the 40%. I've given you the way of doing that, but we can also find out what is actually left to pay. A lot easier, and that's actually what we all want. We want to know how much we're going to pay at the end. So let's break it down for you. 40% off means that you're going to be paying 60%. Turn that into a decimal place. We know that 60% is represented by 0.6. Go back to the table and have a look. We also know that 56 times 0.6 is 33.6. So on this case, if we're going to be taking 40% off, it's £33.60 to pay. That's a bargain, and it's magic! Okay. Do not find the discount. Try and find out what you are left to pay. So, another way that you could do this is by using your mind. Now, if I've got a jacket for £56, 50% off would be £28. And all I've done there is 56 divided by 2, because it's in 2 parts, isn't it? Okay? So we know that if we are going to be taking off quite a big chunk, we need to know what we are going to end up paying. So half of £56 is 28, and 10% of £56 is £5.60. You simply add them together, and at the end you get the same sum as what you just saw on the previous slide, because I am working out what is the 60% worth to me that I end up paying. I don't need to do no more maths than that. I want to find out what I end up paying. Not what the 40% represents, but the 60% represents, because we are paying what is left. And what is left on this particular equation is 60%. So I go to the cash register and pay £33.60 for that jacket. Bargain. So by now you should be able to do this. Question: £100 with 40% off. What do we end up paying? £60, because you know that you have got 2 parts. You know that if you have 100 parts and then you take away 40, you know that you're left with 60. So we are going to end up paying with 60. What I want you to do now is go out shopping. Go and make this as practical as you possibly can. The more practical you can make it, the better it will stick. That means going out and finding out those discounts today. Repeat the process. Get every single kind of discount and find out what you're going to be paying that is left. The only way that we can remember a process is by repeating it over and over. Repeat it until it feels easy, and then we'll go on to stage 2. Oh, and just one tip. Retailers out there, please always ensure that you show what the percentage change means to the customer and the examiner. What does it mean? How much am I going to pay? How much is the difference? I'm going to end up paying what? That is your goal. So, think what's left rather than trying to work out the discount. Think what's left. If you need any more life skills and PDFs, have a look in the description box as I drop more and more little lessons for you today. Because if we let the grass grow too much, and the longer that we leave the grass to grow, it's harder to cut down. So be with me, and I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you.